Welcome to my living room. My name is Lana Labonte. I am here to support, uplift, inspire, and empower you. And hopefully that brings you to the best version of you and why you are here. Because we all have something unique and special within us. And sometimes we need someone else to bring it out of us. Hello, beautiful valley. How are you tonight? So I am sitting over here on my infamous throne, my favorite couch. Actually, it's like a big chair. And I am a little behind on my videos. I have been in my little cocoon. I have been reflecting, remembering, facing challenges, mental, emotional, and physical. Hi, Shakti. As I expect many out there are as well. And you know why I expect that? Because I know it all too well in myself. And that when I feel the collective vibe, it's because I know it's a part of me. Like, we are all, the pulse of the collective isn't just one person. It's all of us. And so sometimes we feel it so strongly, we're like, let me just stay under the covers today. Let me just stay in my house, my comfort zone. Because when you go out there, it's amplified. And see, Shakti, you knew. Actually, I think I sent that out in the waves because I was thinking somebody out there knows I'm going live tonight, right? I got you, girl. I got you, sister. I got your number, your frequency. And a lot of memories have been coming up. Stuff I forgot about. And it's all stuff in my book. And that in itself has been a challenge because over this past weekend, I had a moment where I actually had to sit in the mirror with myself and said, no more fucking protecting people. You've done it all your life. And look at where it got you. Look at what keeping silent did to your health. Think of how being the good girl, not speaking up about what was uncomfortable for you. Me, I'm saying this to myself in the mirror. That over the course of my life, I have protected far too many, and I'm going to say men, too many men who violated me, too many men who used and abused me in many different ways, mental, emotional, and physical, and in ways that I'm sure someone else there, somebody who's listening to this probably needs to hear this. That when we don't speak up, it's not to our benefit. It's protecting those involved. When someone violates your sanctity, your sacredness, your physical body without your permission and leaves you Jedi mind tricked, like just say one example of my past, I look back and I was literally so traumatized, I didn't know what to make of it. I had a crush on this guy. He took advantage of me. And when he took me home, I was just mortified, ashamed, trying to validate what had happened, trying to make sense of the way he treated me, that it was my birthday on top of everything. This is too graphic for me to even share here in this video right now, but let's just say, to rationalize it in my mind at that time, at 14 years old, I was still a virgin. Fortunately, I was on my period, and that was one thing I'm grateful for. But still, what ensued was the last thing I expected. And so when I got home, the first person I spoke to was my best friend's older sister. I called her because I was trying to, like I was in shock. And I know this isn't a first for any woman out there, where a man takes advantage of a situation and you're just like, what just happened? And you're literally, trauma, your mind tries to rationalize, it tries to validate it, to vindicate it, to balance it out, because it's totally unjust and it is imbalanced. And so when you have been violated, abused, whatever, that puts you in that state of WTF, what the hell just happened to me? The mind goes in and tries to create some scenario so that it can somehow regain some sense of normalcy, some sense of balance, some sense of control. And the reason I bring this up is because a lot of times it turns into these types of things where you rationalize that it really wasn't that bad, or that what happened to me was somehow something that I could have prevented. Yeah, I could have, actually, if I'd never called him and never invited him over. How about that? And he was significantly older than I was as well. He was in his 20s. I was 14 years old. He was probably, I want to say 23, maybe even 24. So I shared the story with my girlfriend. I told her what happened. And she says to me, Lana, what he did wasn't right to you. It wasn't right. It's almost as bad as rape. But I didn't want to feel ashamed, because let me tell you, I lived in a small town. And it was bad enough small towns have their dirty little secrets, but also have their popular kids who get away with a lot of shit. People cover things up for them all the time. That just by virtue of liking the person, you probably wanted it. They could create all sorts of stories around it back then. Again, I was 14 years old, so it was 1988. It was the birthday of 1988, August 1st. And I kind of almost forgot about this, but it didn't. I mean, it's popped up a few times in my memories over the years. But this one was huge, because then my girlfriend told my mom. I was supposed to have been grounded, actually. And I convinced my stepdad to let me go out. And it was against even his sense. And I was just wanting what I wanted. And guess what? I got what I didn't want. I obviously no longer liked this guy and saw him as a scumbag. Because that's exactly what he was. To be honest with you, even in that small town, I start to wonder and look back and think, was he on drugs? This wasn't just an alcohol kind of behavior. This was like probably something else, like even cocaine, which I had never seen up there. So I don't know who and what had access, because back in those days when I lived up in northern Maine, it was pot and alcohol. That was the most you ever saw or did. Now every once in a while, when I want to check in and see what's going on, or I'm looking something up in Maine, the only thing I see, all sorts of stuff going on, like crack houses. I'm like, what? That town was so small. You couldn't get away with anything without everybody knowing about it or having an idea about what they thought they knew about it. How about that? So these types of memories have been coming up for me. And I'm like, my gosh, I was so embarrassed. I was so embarrassed. I couldn't, I was a teenager. I didn't know any better. And the fact that they know what they're doing, it's not right. It's not right at any age. Informed consent, please. Most of these people, they just want to get their rocks off. And at someone else's expense, and they don't even care. They don't care how they leave the person or how they traumatize them. and that the person has to live with that. Well, they have to live with it too, but at the same time, I don't think it's the same. It's not the same. So it's things like this that, like, especially over this past couple of weeks, I'm like, holy shit, I didn't realize. You know, we think, oh, not that much stuff's happened to me in my past. But looking over my past, I can see how often I justified violations against me, injustices, you know, the things that traumatized me, and then I just kind of, I stayed silent and I protected people as a result of it, but I didn't protect myself. See, because then we go back to the mind. The mind is trying to find ways to like make sense of it. And when we don't know how to handle a trauma, especially like that, and nobody teaches us, you know, like, it was already bad enough that me and my sisters had to deal with the pedophile in the town. But then there's this lingering energy when you don't clear up your shit, when you don't heal yourself, you don't have the tools to heal yourself, that you literally attract predators. And I'm sharing this story because it took a long time for me to heal my energy and my body, to really reclaim myself to where I didn't feel like predators were still coming at me. And I'm going to tell you, it wasn't until probably, might have even been 6 years ago, you know what I mean? I'm going to be 49 years old, and I'm not comparing myself to anybody. I just share my personal experience, because you never dismiss a person's experience by telling them, well, other people have had it worse than you. Well, how many of us women have heard that all of our fucking lives? And as a result of that, that's why we've kept silent. Because people would diminish us, would dismiss us, and not let us be heard or seen in our pain. So the feminine is really fucking pissed off right now and rising in so many of us, because there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of grief, there's a lot of unresolved pain. That no matter how strong a woman looks, you don't fucking know what she's been through. I hope that my book, which is meant for me more than anybody else out there, that my book inspires people to speak up and tell their story however they can. Because people will still look at you and deny it, because they deny it for themselves. That when they see you rise, they don't see the discomfort, they don't see what you've traversed, the walking through flames, literally walking on eggshells, the shutting down, the protective mode, that I'm afraid to say anything, because if I say anything and I rock the boat, then somebody's going to get hurt, and it's usually you. Everything I say, everything I share is from my heart, because it's my experience and it's my life. And over the course of my life, I've also had people try to tell me, that's not what happened to you. That couldn't be true. That you don't feel like that. This is how you feel. Are you fucking kidding me? How many times that instead of seeing and hearing me, I've been told, this is what you feel. This is... And you know, I was guilty of it too, because I was taught by others who treated me that way how to treat others too. If you think about that, when you see another woman and she's struggling and she just needs someone to listen, 9 times out of 10, she doesn't want any feedback. She just wants to be heard and acknowledged. And when you acknowledge her and you hold that space for her, how sacred that is? I know, because that's what I do. That is my that is part of my path. And that's something I've cultivated because that's what I needed. They say the gift you bring to the world is usually what you needed for yourself. So with all the wisdom that comes from within me, because that's where it all starts, it's because of all of the experiences I have had in my life that allow me to see the reality and accept it for what it is, as opposed to creating and concocting a huge story around why things are the way they are, because that's a trauma response. Every time you start to tell a story to validate or justify or protect someone else, that right there is a telltale sign you've been traumatized, and that you yourself wish someone would tell a good story for you, so you do it for others too. So sit with that for a moment. How many of you out there, you see someone and you want to believe the best in them? You create all sorts of stories. I know this because I used to do it. And my girlfriends, every once in a while when it happens, we start creating a story. I'm like, that's a story. You don't know the answer. You want to know the answer? Ask the person. Don't make yourself crazy, because that is another way they fucked with us women. You're crazy. That's all up in your head. Well, believe it or not, a lot of it is. A lot of it is because that's how we were programmed and conditioned to create stories, to protect others. But that doesn't protect or serve us. That the more we protect others, it's at our heart's expense. Remember what I say, your mind, your thoughts are currency. And where attention goes, energy flows, there's your frequency, and you are paying for every experience. Literally, figuratively, imaginarily, illusory. So when you create a story around someone else's stuff, that's not for you. Although in a way it is. You're doing it for you. It's unconscious and subconscious that you would want that done for you. It's like the golden rule. You would want that done for you, so you do it for others. But the problem is, 9 times out of 10, they're not doing it for you. And so perpetuates the curse, the story of legacy, the generational pain, until you really just go, whoa, wait a minute. I hear you talking, but you're not in sync with your actions, because your actions are out of alignment. They're not with what you're saying. Trust when someone shows you who they are. No more playing small and going into the story realm. When someone demonstrates to you, you see the red flags, be like a bull and charge them out of your life. Red flags, hello. You gotta go. And that brings a funny story today, because I'm gonna share this, and I think it's funny as hell. So I had been excited. I know I shared that I had gone out on a coffee date, not a real date. Like, I met this guy who he was a secret admirer on my Tinder. I didn't really match with him until he had the secret match, and then I liked and said, okay. So that's how that started. So we finally meet in person for coffee, and I was really excited because, okay, this guy's from the Northeast, so he's kind of like, you know, on my level, and he's close with his family and all this stuff. We're talking. First one is just to kind of get the sensation, the feel for the person. I believe in meeting for a coffee first. I don't want to go to dinner, and I don't want to give you my number unless I feel comfortable with you first. So I thought I felt comfortable with this person. And then after the first time, he's sending me texts all this time. And it was weird. It was inconsistent. There was like really crappy ways of communicating, like HYD, how you doing? I don't know about anybody else out there, but I don't communicate like that. I communicate in actual sentences or pick up the phone and call me. He did call me one time to hijack and tell me all about his day for 2 hours, and I was like, okay. But let me roll back to the original meeting, okay? And I was telling my therapist this the other day too, because I have a therapist, and everyone should have someone they can confide in. And I'm very grateful for her, because I said, you know, I don't want to unload this kind of stuff on other people. I want to be with my besties, able to have joy, right? So check this out. The first time we met, he told me he had a rare blood cancer. That was a red flag. But I kind of was like, he doesn't seem like it. Okay. In my mind, I kind of created a story. There I go, and I'm admitting it. So here's how this went. But in my mind, I'm also thinking, am I being set up? Because I don't want to be anybody's caretaker. If you're not taking care of your body, like I take care of my body, what makes you think I want to like roll up in here and just be taking care of you? It's all about you, right? So it was kind of, I believe, whether it's real or true or not, I don't know. Either way you look at it, it's kind of a setup, ladies. So be careful if you go on a first date and the first things they're telling you is their health ailments, because my girlfriends and I are like, who tells that much depth about themselves on the first meeting? Like, I don't want to be your caretaker. Can I just say that? But I thought, okay, well, at the most, I thought, well, we could be friends. You never know. But this whole communication style was just, it was really immature. And so we met one other time for coffee. And then I realized at that moment that this guy just talks about himself. And every time I try to say something, he wouldn't let me finish. So I was like, okay. And this was before Memorial Day weekend. So he had made a comment when he hugged me twice. Oh, maybe we can take the jet skis out. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know about anybody else out there, but when someone says something like that, I wait for the call to make the appointment, because he didn't make an appointment. In fact, he didn't really make any attempts other than after the first meeting where he wanted to see me immediately after. And I was like, listen, I got stuff going on and I don't want to be out on the weekend crowds, because I just don't. I prefer weekdays to meet and get to know someone. Otherwise, it's just a big mess. And I'm not a drinker, and I don't really like those crowds anymore, unless I'm in another country and it's a whole nother situation. So, oh, that's okay, Shakti, you're good. So check it out. This gets better. He didn't send me any messages except for on that Saturday to say, hey, how you doing? And I said, oh, just got done with the gym. And he didn't respond till 4:30 in the afternoon. And then he sent me another message saying hi on the Sunday at 7:30. And I'm like, I'm not responding to hi. Like, that's not a response, and that's not communication. He didn't pick up the phone. He didn't try to call me. On the Monday, I was out with my girlfriend all day, and he finally sends me another text, passive aggressive, at 8 o'clock on the Monday, saying how, well, I assume you must have had a good weekend. And it was like, oh, okay. And I was like, And then I finally responded and said, well, as a matter of fact, I did. Thank you. I hope you did too. And then I get this LMO or LOL. Oh, it would have been better. Yeah, I did, but it would have been better if you were there. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't get that impression. And then I proceeded to call him out on all his bullshit. And he was backstepping the whole time. Like paragraphs of, like, from short little HYD to big paragraphs of claiming he didn't want to be intrusive and up my ass. And I'm like, how about consistent? Because that's what I said. I said, you're not being consistent. So anyway. So fast forward, I basically said, I don't have time or energy to explain myself to you. If you go back and look through the messages, I don't know who communicates like this, but this is just not my thing, okay? So I was pretty clear. Listen, if you don't set a standard, people will bowl you over with their bullshit. And I don't have time for it. I'm no longer wasting my time. And it made it easier too, because I'm like, I had already given him all sorts of information how he could go and get himself treated if that was the case, if he wanted. But beyond that, I am not his fucking mother, and I don't want to be his caretaker. I'm not trying to find another because my last one was basically a man-child. I'm not signed up for the man-child. I am signed up for the man who's got his shit together, because I got my shit together. And if he doesn't bring some wisdom and some maturity to me, I don't want your fucking drama. That's the bottom line. Because I pointed that out, and it was very clear. So he did try a couple times. I got texts from him that I didn't respond to. Thinking of you, you know, like wanting to backpedal and really get to know me. And I thought to myself, you didn't try to get to know me when you were with me. You wouldn't let me finish speaking. I'm not going to go through this whole try to explain this to you kind of thing. So this is where it gets funnier, though, because today I have to laugh because it is comical. When you really get down to it, there's the part of me that goes with, he might have been a hustler and a player because he claimed he hustles when he works and all this stuff. And so I kind of pick up on all the innuendos and the languaging that people use as well. And I thought to myself, huh, so I'm basically making this harder for him. And now he really wants to get to know me. And it's like, he was already a little too over the top. And I was just like, forget this. I don't need this. I don't have time for this. So today, I don't remember the last time I got a message from him. I think he sent me a message on Tinder a couple days ago saying, thinking about you. And well, today at 5 o'clock, I got this. Apparently he knows the emojis for the middle finger. And I was just like, there it is. There's your level of maturity, right? I sent a picture screenshot to my girlfriend. I was like, how, you know what I mean? Like, you want to leave the best impression with somebody, so they are like, wow, you missed out kind of deal. You don't want to leave, you know, a sticky, icky, ew impression. And this is the irony of dating, right? Like, all these men are complaining about how, oh, she only wants to go out for dinner. And I was telling my girlfriend earlier today about how, well, isn't it funny? With dinner, the waitress gets tipped. We don't get tipped. We get to sit and listen to your bullshit. And sometimes that's like suffering. I'm just saying. So what they don't really want to admit is they don't like being rejected, or the fact that the woman said, okay, I'm out of this. This is, the meal might not even have been worth it, is my point. And they don't ever stop to consider, okay, so you paid for a meal and you gave one tip to the waitress, okay? Assuming they're that high level. Woman, okay, I got my nails done, I tip my nail lady. I got my hair done, I tip my hair lady. I got a dress. Hopefully that didn't require any type of alterations. You know what I mean? Like, the time it takes to get ready for the date, they completely have no clue. They don't understand. That means they are man-childs. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have no respect and appreciation for the time and energy a woman puts in to present herself to you, not on a silver platter that says, oh, and by the way, you're entitled to my body too, just because you paid for a fucking meal. Get the fuck out of here. If you really believe that, you need to go back to school for etiquette. Because that shit doesn't fly even in the higher realms. I've dated some serious men, and you know what? Going to dinner is not a sexual exchange. It is not an exchange of anything but two people getting to know one another. And it's also chivalry, because the man paying for the dinner, especially when he asked her out, that's the least he can do. And to make sure she gets home safe. The world has gone to shit in a hell in like serious handbasket, because the men that I've dated, not even a question. Like, top, Michelin rated. Let's go out for this fancy. I've even gone on trips. They pay for a separate room. They pay for your airline if you go somewhere. Like, I don't know where these boys think that's appropriate. And so women, we need to be holding ourselves to a higher caliber and not putting up with these little piddly little pissant dickwaggers. I don't know. I'm just being whatever. Because truly, I've been on enough dates and I've been in enough relationships to know how I should be treated and what I deserve. It's not a matter of I have to explain or justify myself to some boy who doesn't want to pay for even a meal. I mean, I try to make it really simple by let's meet for coffee and let's see if he pays for the coffee. That in itself also tells. The first guy that I met, I actually paid for my own coffee and he got his own coffee. And then the meal that he took me out for when we did go to dinner after he struck my gong and I'm like, please don't touch my stuff when you enter my house. Like, that was immature. I should have just basically ended it there. Yeah, I got a higher standard and I am not compromising that shit ever again in my life. My ex social media partner, that was a serious blip in the radar. Like a narcissist, when they can't literally physically fuck you because they can't get it up all the way and they got issues in the bedroom, they will literally try to get in your head and fuck with you. That's what that was. And it got to the point where I let it get to my health when I landed up in the hospital. And I've already told the story about getting my appendix removed. And that is a manifestation of having deep disgust with another person, but ultimately with yourself for getting to that point. Yeah, real gentleman. I'm all for it. And I am the last person who will male bash. You know why? Because I've had some really good men in my life. Sometimes they've turned out to be assholes in the end. I'm just saying, Larry. Surprise, surprise. People will surprise you. But at the same time, it's like a man is a man and should show up as such. I don't want to hear you complain about money. To me, that's a total turnoff. I don't want to hear you complain about your last relationship either. I mean, we haven't even got to know each other, and if you're already on that, then that's a no-go too, because you haven't gotten over it if you're still complaining about it. I can complain and tell you my stories because that's my personal experience. That's where I'm at right now. I haven't been in a relationship now for should have kicked Tom out a long time prior to all that because we weren't really in a relationship and nothing worked anyway. Let's see, that would have been 2018 if I had really, and it would have been February 2018 when but I didn't actually kick him out until after my appendectomy because I had to have backup because narcissists will try to exhaust you and fight with you, and literally it was exhausting just trying to get rid of his ass. So I learned a lot of lessons over the course of my life. But I'm going to go back to what I was saying about your energy and how you emit. That if you have not healed that parasitic, that victimized energy around your body, because your cells remember until you clear it and cleanse it. That's movement, that's breath work, that's a lot of talk therapy, journaling, dancing, screaming, shouting, doing whatever the fuck you gotta do to get that shit out of you. But it takes feeling it, because that's what reveals it, to ultimately heal it. And that's why I do what I do, because of what I've learned, what worked for me. Not everybody can do the same thing on their own, which is why having a mentor, a coach, or some form of a support network is so imperative. You can't expect, oh, I'll just get a book and I'll read about it. I'm going to tell you right now, I got a lot of books. Books didn't teach me shit that I didn't have to do for myself. The workshops, Tony Robbins' Date with Destiny, the yoga teacher trainings, going to Nicaragua for an entire month for my first yoga teacher training, going to Greece with Shiva Ray for the first time, that was a 2-weeker. And then I came back and I did Kundalini Yoga level 1 and then 5 level 2s to get my level 2. than the Beyond Addiction program, which I did at least 5 times, once for myself, and then I became a facilitator. It's like you get through things by repetition and really peeling away layers. It doesn't just happen because you decide, okay, I'm just going to heal this. I'm going to get it up. Okay, I went to a workshop and I want to heal everybody else too. That is the most common thing I hear too, is how, and I did it myself. But what I witnessed, especially at Anthony Robbins, because everybody gets high on the endorphins and you're in the state, you know, and they're trying to get you into the next program. That in itself, hook, line, sinker, we got you. You're a paying customer once again. I'm not a big fan. I love Tony Robbins. It worked for me. I needed Date with Destiny. When people are like, when did you do UPW? I'm like, I never did UPW. And then I ended up being a fire team person. So I went to Rome and the UK to help with that. But ultimately, we need to integrate too. You can't just, okay, I did this and I want to help the world. It's like, because the Anthony Robbins thing, it's like, I watch so many people who are like, I want to be a coach too because I got coached and it helped me. And I'm like, wow. Let me learn my lessons first before I start inflicting more upon other people. How about that one? Because when you go through these different programs, whatever it is you choose to go through, even if you work with me, you still need time to integrate. You need the time to assess the lessons you learned, what's your core wound? Do you know what your core wound is? What is your fear? Fear of abandonment? You know? Here's an example. My core wound is being dropped. And boy, that has been one hell of a fucking theme in my life. People who overpromise and underdeliver or even deliver at all. Dropping me, leaving me hanging, going, what the fuck just happened? There I am again. Thanks again. Sayonara. I'm glad you got what you wanted and left me hanging with nothing. You can see where that kind of thing can build up as resentment in a person too, right? But when you're identified, you understand, you unlock your frequency, your keys, your code, you decode yourself, as I like to say, like Logan from Decode Your Reality. He talks my language. That's why I really appreciate him. And I had a decode with him in, I think it was November of 2021. Because there is something about your numerology, your birth date, your Enneagram, your gene codes, all that stuff applies. And the more you get to know yourself, the more you go, oh, wow, look at that. You're not just looking at your shit, you're looking at your like, wow, those are my strengths. Like for me, the gene code. So the other day, I went and I did the gene code questionnaire thing, I fill it out. And I'm like, that's spot on. Wow. And you know what was funny enough in there too? Is it actually said because of my code? People will ask you, did you write your life story? Did you write your autobiography? And it says, and if you didn't, it's because you weren't living enough. And I was like, oh, fuck. If I didn't need to see that for reinforcement for why I'm doing what I'm doing, I was like, whoa. So take advantage of all the tools out there. Get to know yourself, your cards of destiny. Get to know all of it because it's all important and it's all contributing to you getting to know you. That the truth of this life is you being revealed, revelations to you. Your soul is here for experience. This shit gets in the way because it starts attaching labels and limitations and, oh, good, and that's bad, and we're so fragmented. It's time to reclaim. It's the reclamation. It's wholeness. We want wholeness, not fragments of ourselves. To say healing, I don't even like the word healing anymore. You know why? Because that can be addictive. So many people are in the healing community, hiding out, doing the work, at least that's how it looks on the surface. And the reality is they're not getting very far. They're not really getting to know themselves. And then there's that whole thing around, what if nothing's wrong with you? What if all this time, all you just needed to do, and this is the short and sweet encapsulation of the healing journey, the healer's journey, period, the heroine's journey, whatever you want to call it, the hero's journey, the shadow work, the this, the that. There's a label for all this shit, right? Because you know the mental health in the mental health industry profits heavily off of us being broken. Think about that for a second. I mean, that's the truth of the matter. Like, if you're not broken, then something's wrong with you. So, you know, anytime you see something and you know in your heart and you follow it, it's easier to cut you down, isn't it? If you're broken, you're always people pleasing. If you're broken, you're trying to appease and do the right thing, and the righteousness doesn't make you right. Yeah, the triggers are your work to do. And the repetitiveness shows that you're incapable of confronting what lies below the trigger. Trigger. Think about that. You get trigger happy. You want to point the finger out and say someone else did it to you? No, it's always us. Unfortunately, it's always us. And when we can recognize that our triggers are really just guidance tools, helping direct us in the way, look over here. You know, that's not the problem. This over here is. They just became the catalyst to your healing. Or I should say, they became the catalyst to your revealing the truth about yourself to you. How many times I've been like, damn, got me. Yeah, I can get pissed off at that person. It's not to say it might not be right, or that you aren't justified in being upset with somebody triggering you, whatever that might be, but there is usually a pattern behind it. And what it reveals is the power that it holds over you. So when you allow someone to poke your buttons, poke at you, provoke you, get something out of you, when you get them, they get you to rise out of your shit, like lose your shit. Basically, it's like handing over your power to the other person. And that's like exhausting in itself. So when we get poked and provoked, and, you know, God is the generator, the organizer, destroyer, deliverer kind of deal, we always have an opportunity to transmute that, to take that energy and make it work for us. Because we're not here to play small to all the trigger bullshit. Yeah, we got shit. We all got shit. Doesn't mean you're broken. No, we live in a cult of personalities, a society that has normalized what they like to call mental illness, when in reality it's a toxic environment. We've been conditioned and programmed by a society that is not normal, indoctrinated into their bullshit, playing along with things that, like, well, it's always been that way, so we should, you know, nothing's ever going to change. It's like, do you hear yourself when you say these kinds of things? Do you really believe that? Do you really want that to be the truth? I don't. The reason I'm going through the sovereignty, removing myself out of the maritime admiralty law stuff, like reclaiming my human. I'm not dead at sea. They can stop trading me on the stock exchange, just like cattle and chattel. Stockyards, sound familiar? It's a crazy world we're living in. But until we claim our power, reclaim ourselves, and especially right now for women, because so many of us are actually going through the grieving, the recognizing, holy fuck, like this was me the past week. How many fucking times was I violated? And then to top it off, by not speaking up, I protected other people that didn't deserve protecting. No more, baby. No more. You're not being protected by me anymore. And you know what? I don't give a fuck if I say a name and it's their real name or it's not their real name, if I remember their real names, because in some cases, I'll be straight up, there's a lot of names I forget. There's a lot of things that, fortunately for them, I've forgotten. I have a lot of blurs in my past too, but I got some clear memories of things too. Yeah. That was a big one for me, because when you're violated physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually as women, the unfortunate thing for men is they don't realize that affects them too, because the goddess should be revered. And when she is violated, that's how Durga became Kali, because Durga, Kali are the opposite archetypes. That is why Medusa became Medusa. She was so enraged, you know, from all the violations. She would just turn men to stone because she didn't want anybody or anything getting close to her. Specifically, it was men. All of these stories have lessons in them. Hera, that was one that came to me when I first came back from Europe in 2013. And I didn't even know the story of Hera, but it just dropped in and I was like, oh. Hera was supposedly they would call her the jealous wife of Zeus, but the reality was she was also Zeus's sister, and he betrayed and raped her. And when you look at those stories, you're like, what the hell? Like, the pattern around violating women has been throughout all of these stories. It's really like, are you fucking kidding me? When did men actually revere women? When did they work together and recognize each other's strengths? Like, it is that sad to look at those fables, those stories, and not see even Parvati and Lakshmi. Parvati? Wait. No, yeah? Parvati, was it Lakshmi? No, Shiva. Parvati is the wife of Shiva. And he would go away, and all she wanted was a child to keep her company, especially because she was lonely because the frickin' man went off and left her all alone. Like, what kind of fucking stories are we being told as kids? Okay, we got Prince Charming, right? The Cinderella story. I mean, like, and this is the programming we all grew up with. No wonder we're all fucked up in the head. We don't know how to have a true relationship, right? And it's not that any culture is worse than the other. It's the raising of us children. It's the, unfortunately, and this is where the resets come in, right? Who was teaching who as time went on? I mean, there's so many abuses in families that coming out, like incest was, I mean, look at the royal bloodlines. They all marry within their own freaking bloodline because they don't want to unpure blood. It's like, are you kidding me? So that, you know, you look at it and you're like, wow, that's kind of gross if you think about it. And people are idolizing these people. People are putting them up on a pedestal. Yeah, that's healthy. All of this is freaking nutso. So when women start speaking up and saying, I'm not letting a man in this, you know, unless he shows up and treats me like a queen. And I'm saying this this is from a healthy place, by the way. I'm not, obviously, a healthy woman has done the work on herself and she's like, I'm whole. I'm not letting in any broke motherfuckers. And then those are the guys that get pissed off the most, though, right? Those are the first ones that get pissed off. Not every man gets a chance with you. And so, you know, they talk their shit. because that's their level of maturity. And hurt people. And the rest of us are going, thanks for the red flag and you made it easy for me. So bye-bye. But people will always reveal themselves to you, as I said from the beginning, and trust them. The stories that we create come from the conditioning and the programming that we grew up with. Just even witnessing my parents, which I love both my parents. You know, losing mom was the hardest. She was my best friend. We had our moments. I had my periods of time when I couldn't talk to her because I was in a space of trying to make sense of my life. And to a certain degree, some of her triggers would be too toxic for me at that time. So there were periods where I didn't talk to her, but there were periods, most of my life, it was every day on the phone with my mom. She was my confidant. She would just listen. She knew my heart because she gave me hers. That in itself, the sacrifice of a mother who herself wasn't allowed to grow up, didn't even really have a childhood. Like, I look at the pain that she must have endured in her life. And she was a strong 𝐔𝐿𝐴𝐺 woman. Despite all the shit I know she went through, she had a shield around her like she could take it. Not that she deserved it. And just like me, her firstborn daughter, really not third technically, but as far as I knew, I was always the first with my dad. Somehow I carried that too. And that even when I've told stories about myself, people's mouths drop and they're like, they can't believe it. They don't want to believe it because I don't give that impression that this was what I dealt with and what I lived growing up or what I experienced in my life. Like, another reason for this book, and it's for me, is to really reflect at all the shit that I dealt with and I tolerated, and I didn't know I didn't have to. That the book is really for me more than anybody, but at a certain sense, I will tell you right now that all of my life, one of my biggest struggles, one of my biggest desires is for people to really truly see me, despite all the pain and all the trials and tribulations and all the bullshit I've endured and dealt with. And not look at me and go, oh, easy for you to say, you've had it easy. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? You have no clue. And I don't have to sit here and explain myself or justify it. But that's what I said in the beginning, that behind every strong woman, and why do women, of all people, women against women, look at how our society has fucked us over that way. We're not here to compete. I've never been that woman. I've never wanted to compete with another woman. In fact, I'm the first person to cheer you on, raise you up. But I've had some bitches try to take me down and tear me down. And it's been fucked up beyond belief. And it sucks. And they still didn't even know the half of it. That I'm not like a physical, in your face, gotta scrap. I've never been that person. Normally it's been my words that would get you. Usually my tongue, like a sword, like a lingam, right? Strong women, we have soft and tender hearts. And over this past year, I just really realized and revealed it. When I had my implants removed, like, that was the big one. I had no clue how much was hidden below that, how much that was a shield in itself, that was protecting me from me. But then a rupture makes sense because it's like my heart wanted to burst out. that I wanted to feel deeper. And God knows over this past year, I've been feeling it as deep as you could probably feel. And what's really fucked up is I'm still dealing with the whole situation with the vet who came after me and is the reason I lost my social media, didn't even put the dots together. Me, the dot connector. Me, the one who sees patterns. That the first week in October, while I was on my trip and I was really doing well with my social media, I had a good following. I had people organically, you know. I had grown my following. And she goes and she reports my account just like a good little anonymous bully. And of course, Facebook and social media, it's all about protecting them. They don't give a shit. That's how fucked up this world is. Where the really insane ones are the ones running the show and getting away with shit. Which is why for women, we need to stand up. We need to rise and not keep our voices small or quiet. Don't be the good girl. Be a bad bitch. You know why I say that? Because not everybody's going to like what you say anyway, so what does it matter? Be authentic. If it hurts, tell them. That fucking hurt. That wasn't really nice. That was really unkind. How did that feel to you to say that to me? Like, always give it back to them in the form of a question. That's also one of the arts of negotiating with people. The person with the question is the one in control of the conversation. I know my nose is running now. I need a drink of water. So yeah, I've had a lot of memories pop up. A lot of things I didn't even realize. I was like, oh shit, forgot about that one too. Yeah. They're all in my book. Coming. I'm just like, and I will be honest, it's a little overwhelming because I'm like, oh shit. How do I present that? I don't want the book to be about violations, but I really wanted people to understand the importance of speaking your truth, your word, your voice is your essence. It's your purpose. I mean, if you can't speak up for yourself, just like anything, that is how you create. Through the word, through the five senses. And any one of those being impaired or dismissed or reduced or even silenced, cut off, that cuts you off from your own heart. Like your heart is your intuitive guidance system, and your senses are what extend from it. As a human, we experience this world through our five senses. That's why I talk about heightened senses lead to heightened intuition. Because it's all about your heart getting out of your head. It's this very short distance to drop, by the way. So, I was very poetic last week, and I appreciated all your words, by the way, so thank you. Words were streaming through me because that's how it's always been. Writing has always been cathartic for me, and I don't always remind myself that I'm a poet as well. So I went to a tea ceremony with my dear sister on summer solstice. Actually, it was the 22nd, so it was the day after. Was it the 22nd? Yeah, it was the Thursday of last week because I just felt a calling. And she's so sweet to me. She was in my circle, as I was her circle guardian in her Kundalini program, her level 1. And I share this. This is from my heart, what I wrote that streamed out of me. Because sometimes I need to be reminded of what's important in life. Sometimes it's coffee, sometimes it's tea, or maybe a matcha that fills me with glee. But ultimately, it's being present with whatever's in me. Life is full of ups and downs, but it's up to us to learn to stand or jump off the ground. Can you imagine a world without contrast? One without the sadness of a perceived lost happiness? It's all in perspective that we can find the beauty of it all, a glimmer of hope woven in the silver lining. Where does your attention go? In and out, to and fro. What would you choose without the duality to express our polarity? We get to choose how we experience each moment, even when it seems out of our control. But don't you know, you're the one fighting within yourself. Everything that appears is really in there. You're inside, outside, upside, downside. You're everywhere. And when you're willing, you will be found, because all those who wander are surely not lost. They're simply seeking at all costs that which was within them every second, every time. Contrast signals an imbalance within. Balance signals the neutrality that cancels out our duality. Don't despair, it's all in there, despite all what may appear. No matter where you look, no matter what or where you hide, you cannot get off this crazy ride. But if you're humbled and willing to slow down at your soul's pace, you may just find there is no race. A softening in your heart and a silencing of the mind reveals your true nature originates in energy and vibration, harmonics and frequency. It's a remembrance, a tuning into your own song. For in the end, you will find it was you all along. I think I'll put that at the beginning of my book. And one of the things that I sat with as I was holding the tea, I release what is not me, does not support me, or allow me to be. I honor with reverence each sip, as tears release drip by drip, clearing and cleansing to give clarity through my lenses, to see what is truly within me when I allow myself to be. My heart is sacred, my soul precious. We are unlimited in our senses. Thank you, Valley. Even I was impressed by that, because I was like, every time it always comes back to self, comes back to you. That everything we claim to seek, it's not out there, it's in here. The truth is, it's us all this time. We'll always go back to us. And the us is the collective. So we catch glimmers of ourselves in the faces of others because they mirror back to us ourselves, the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, in joy, in pain. It's all to be celebrated. It's demonstrable that we humans are here for all of it, not just a piece here or a piece there, the good, because you selected the good, but the good, bad that comes with the good, because that is wholeness. Again, duality, polarity, you can't have one without the other. So many people don't want the pain, but they don't understand. The pain is the gift of the pleasure, and the pleasure will deliver the pain. I am so grateful for my life, in all the pain and all the pleasure, that when I get emotional, it just reminds me I'm human. There's nothing wrong with sharing a tear, shedding or sharing. It's expressing our authenticity, our truth, who we really are. This is me revealing my heart. And that is why I do what I do, to inspire others to do it too. The teacher becomes the student becomes the teacher. It's all in us. It's not outside of us. Because again, we magnetize where we're at. So what we attract is showing us the level at which we're at. The attention that we give, the energy, internally, externally, also draws that to us. You are also awesome, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Without the tears, how could we see clearly, right? And it's because of my experiences that I can see and know what I do. And I can intuitively tell you too. I can rhyme and reason and all that stuff. But ever since I was a little girl, I've known things, I've seen things, I've had my, my friends. I have two little, I don't know if I've ever shared this. My first guardian angel's name was Faranissima. How did I come up with that name? I have no clue. I didn't make it up. It was revealed to me. And the second one, when I was living in Naples, Italy, in my favorite place downtown, I'll call it my penthouse because it was a penthouse basically, was Serafina. So I had Faranissima and Serafina. And again, I didn't make that up. It just was presented to me. I think that was in 2006 when I found out about Serafina. Faranissima I'd known about for many, many years. But I've always known I had angels and guardians. Despite the crazy shit that happened to me in my life, they can't always protect you from the physical violations and the places we put ourselves. Sometimes those are meant for our growth. Right? It sounds, Serafina, so Serafina is like the seraphims, which I later learned and didn't realize were the closest to God. And Faranissima, I looked it up one time and I don't remember. I almost want to say it might be Celtic and going back into the Gaelic, which is really interesting. If you listen to, James and I have had these conversations. I don't know if he's made some videos about it. Oh yeah, he did. About how a lot of languages actually go back to the Gaelic. So it's very cool. That's beautiful. Michael and Francis. Francis of Assisi. He was the monk, yeah. The Franciscan monks too, right? But when I was a little girl, I used to see things. I used to see ghosts. The conversation I had with a girlfriend across the street when we lived in Boston, I used to go over to her house on the top of their brownstone, and she had all sorts of toys, tons of toys. Like, it was a child's, like, it was like being, as a child would want, it was like the best place to be because she had all the toys. It was so cool. And I look back, I mean, I remember thinking back to how we would hang out and we would play doctor and some things that were questionable. And I was young. I mean, like, we're talking like 5 or 6, right? But I was allowed to go to her house and play with her. But she used to talk about the devil living under her bed. And that spooked me out. Like, that felt really weird. I actually I believe we went to Catholic school together. We went to the first grade Sacred Heart in Boston. And I mean, I don't even remember too many details other than I can visually see her like own big bedroom full of toys, like the big adult size dollhouse type stuff and everything. It was a dream. I can just say that. And it made me wonder, looking back, if she was being abused by someone in her family. I mean, these are the things that, in retrospect, because kids make stories up in a certain sense to protect, right? Let's talk about that. Again, we're talking about protection. We're talking about not speaking up. We create a story because our mind, especially at those formative years, is trying to rationalize this trauma that I've been through. Well, it's the devil, or maybe they said something around that, you know, but it was spooky to me. And anytime there was darkness, I would get really like, there was something weird. I never liked the closet door open. That was another thing. I don't know if it's because it was a portal, but in our house in Dorchester, the closet was huge. Like, it was a walk-in for a kid, right? It was a big, good size. I mean, I have an older house here, and the closets here are not even nearly as big. And it just would spook me out. I always liked the door shut. Because I don't know if that just planted a seed in my mind about the darkness and the devil and all that stuff, but there's some weird shit. And this was long before the whole monster cartoon series where they were living under the beds and stuff. I mean, we all probably grew up with that whole thing about the monsters under the bed long before it was a movie, right? So anyway. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed tonight's segment. Seriously. Everybody is grieving something. And that's pretty much where I started with all this, is that I literally last week realized so much of my pain and my grief was from the violations that I couldn't make sense of. Like, who would treat a woman's body like that? Who would do that? Like, this whole power trip of men having to be forced upon us, like, that to me tells me that at some point in those men, those boys, whatever's lives, they were violated and something was forced upon them. So when they've done that to women, it's just a carrying over of that same energy. It's the only thing that makes sense to me, right? Is that violations, just like bullies, you're taught. You don't just become a bully. You had to learn from being bullied. Same with violating. You don't just violate unless you've been violated. I think it's less commonly heard of with women violating, but it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. But it is that reclamation of power, just not in a healthy way. And the way we want to reclaim our power is to have and make peace with ourselves. Whether it's in the mirror and saying, you know, you're okay. I've got you. What happened to you wasn't right. And I will protect you as best as I can. But if anybody deserves more forgiveness, it's you, because you are the one that feels shame because you felt like you didn't have control or could have done something different. The reason we carry pain is because of the shame. And the irony is, we say we don't want it, but that's the thing we're clinging on to the most. The things we suppress, they show up and express themselves. So like I say, I try to remind people, you may not think you're shit shows, but tell me, I'm telling you, it's a shit show and we can all see it. You can try to play the cognitive dissonance. Oh, that doesn't exist. That's not me. It shows up, especially when you say it's not you. Yeah. Owning it and not letting it own you. That's the key. That's the reclamation and reclaiming of your power. Because when you reclaim yourself and say nobody else, like I do this, I go through periods like, and I've been dealing with this a lot. I mean, there literally felt like there was this like waging against me from the masculine. And I'm like, I'm your biggest cheerleader. What the fuck? Why would you come at me like that? Like the guy, right? Like, how crazy is that? He couldn't get in me, couldn't get to me. So he acted out, right? That's total man-child. That is so, yeah, again, it's a failure to regulate your emotions. And that's acting out. Look at me, it's narcissism. I don't know how blown out the narcissism might be in that individual, but clearly he was unhappy that he didn't get his way. And that's what happens, is people will always reveal themselves. I'm sorry that you didn't get your way, but I'm not going to make, it is not my job to cower and make you feel good. You made me feel like shit. Fuck off. And you're still trying to get my attention. That's part of the learning and the lesson of all the encounters that we have in life. Whether it's an intimate, whether it's a friend, whatever it is, with a stranger, it's up to you to say, that was inappropriate. Like, great little funny story from Italy. This is going in my book too. So I was going into my apartment, and every once in a while I would run into neighbors. And there was this one, I'm just going to call him the dirty old Italian lawyer. And I say this because he walks over to me, and for whatever reason, my nipple, which I'm just going to say, even with when I had no boobies, like, you know, size A cup kind of deal, my nipples are profound. I mean, they just stick out. I've always had to have some little bit of padding. I will tell you, when I was younger, I was very conscious of that. It made me feel weird because I'm like, I got no boobs, but I got nipples. So like, if I wore a t-shirt with no bra, it was like, cheek, you know? So like, that was part of my reasoning, even though I would have told you years ago that the reason I got breast implants was because I could, and because it made me feel more hourglass. It made me feel more balanced in my body. And then it imbalanced my body and I had to come out. But like, think about that. Like, okay, so here's my nipples. And this was when I had breast implants. This guy comes up to me, and they think they're fucking cute too, by the way. And he takes his finger and literally flicks my nipple. 𝐔𝐶𝐬𝐿. And he chuckles like, 𝐔𝐶𝐬𝐿. He's trying to flirt with me about it. And I looked at him and was like, non è bene. I think I said, non è bene. Perché hai fatto così? Like, I was like so stunned, like, what the fuck? And he was an upstanding lawyer too, by the way. You know, that again, there are, and Naples is a big city, but it has its dirty little secrets too. There's a lot of shit that goes down there too. But like, because if they act inappropriately, it's probably because nobody's spoken up and called them out on it. I called him out on it. It was crazy. To the average eye, you would think it was funny, but it was not funny. It was really inappropriate. And it was mortifying too, because I'm like, the fuck? Like, what the hell? Like, I didn't give you permission to touch me like that. This was a dirty old man too. Like, I mean, at the time, let's see, what year was that? That would have been 2007 or 8. And so, you know, that's some time ago. And like, yeah, not cool. Anyway, he knew what he was doing. A lot of them do. They try to play these little games. Just don't fall for it. Because I think a lot of us, we've allowed it far too long. And the only way this world is going to change is if we start speaking up and saying that's inappropriate. I'm not tolerating that. Look at the state of the world right now. That's all inappropriate. I'm not tolerating that. Yeah. Again, I hope you enjoyed this segment of me in my authenticity. Again, hit the like. Sharing is caring. I'm sure there is somebody out here, somebody out there, somebody you know that probably needs this message too. Please share, because this could mean so much to somebody who needs to hear it. That we're all going through something, and we're really, truly, we're all grieving as a collective. Well, he walked away eventually, yeah. But I appreciate you for showing up. I will always show up as I am. I'll just get better and better at it too. Because that's what life is. We improve upon the previous version of ourselves to get better. And as they say, like fine wine, women age beautifully. At least some of us do, not all. I'm going to stay with that one because I like that I'm aging well. Every once in a while, I'm a little bit like, yeah, but you know what? I'm quite content. I could use a little bit more sleep, though. So you all have sweet dreams. I love you so much. Mwah, mwah, mwah.